Welcome to 80s TV Ladies, part of the Weirding Way Media Network. Hello, friends. Welcome to 80s TV Ladies, where we explore female-driven television shows from the 1980s and celebrate the people who made them. Here are your hosts, Sharon Johnson and Susan Lambert-Haddam.
Hello, I'm Susan.
And I'm Sharon. And today we welcome an incredible writer for so many ladies of the 80s.
And the 90s, 2000s, and beyond, all the way to now, Sharon.
We are super excited for this special holiday episode to kick off December, talking about the new Lifetime Christmas holiday spectacular TV movie, Ladies of the 80s, A Divas Christmas, with one of the writers, Stan Zimmerman.
A Divas Christmas stars Loni Anderson, Morgan Fairchild, Linda Gray, Donna Mills, and Nicolette Sheridan.
It's written by James Berg and Stan Zimmerman, directed by Christy Will Wolfe, and with a theme song performed by 80s pop sensation Tiffany.
Stan Zimmerman is a writer, producer, and director across television, film, and the stage.
Stan and his writing partner, James Berg, also have a very special relationship to many 80s TV ladies because he started working in television in the 1980s, most excitingly on The Golden Girls.
Welcome, Stan, to 80s TV Ladies, what we're calling our Divas Christmas special episode.
I may have to sing the Katie Osland song. Developing a half-hour sitcom because we thought she'd be the next Roseanne, and we talked her into it. Yeah, she was such a cool lady, and she's actually in my book as one of my girls.
One of your girls.
One of my girls, yes.
Oh, that's fantastic. We're really thrilled to have you here today to talk about the upcoming TV movie on Lifetime, as well as your amazing career. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I was looking at your career and I'm thinking like you have to be one of the top experts in the world of 80s TV ladies. All of them.
I lived it. I loved it. Laughed at it and a couple tears in there. Yes. I kept a journal actually throughout from college, actually. And I used that in my book. I pulled all the excerpts out of when I wrote about the ladies that I worked with. And I kept a lot during Golden Girls. Obviously, it was such a intense experience as a young new writer coming to LA and landing on the first season before it was even became a thing. You know, we were there watching it every week grow into a national phenomenon and now an international phenomenon.
It's so funny because it's a show we actually haven't covered yet because it's too much. It's the brass ring of 80s TV ladies.
I will be there with you for the entire time and walk you through it if you want to be.
Fantastic. And that's in many ways the first thing you're known for is being on first season or two of Golden Girls.
The first season. We were literally in the writer's room going through phone books, coming up with names of cities where Betty White's character came from. We were there when St. Olaf was born, not knowing it would turn into, all of her crazy stories. I mean, we got a hint in the pilot, and that's what you do as writers. You watch the pilot, to get the job, and you go in and you pitch episodes is what we did. We wrote an episode, and they loved the first draft so much that they brought us on staff really quickly. And that's hard for outside writers, especially baby writers, to get the voices of those characters because they're just developing themselves of what they were. But we saw that Rose would tell long stories. That's why we did the whole run of, no, Rose, this is how you tell a story. Bing, bang, boom. You see what they do well in a pilot, and you keep, going in that direction to bring out the voices. Because remember, Susan Harris wrote this with just certain actors in mind. She did think of B. Arthur. She wrote a B. Arthur type, literally, in the character description.
Oh, that's funny.
But she didn't know that Betty would play that part, and she didn't know Rue would. And, nobody knew Estelle. Those of us that had seen her on Broadway in Torch Song Trilogy, which I had a few summers before, never realizing that I would be writing for that woman, and then becoming friends with her and hanging out and going places and having her come to my 30th birthday party. I mean, what a treat all of that was for a young writer, and I appreciated every single moment of it, all the difficult ones, the hair pulling out ones, but knowing that what that was and how lucky we were to be there writing for the best of the best.
That is so amazing. So it was you and your writing partner, Jim Berg, and you guys became partners early on, like really early on.
Really early on, actually in college. So I never thought I would be a writer because I didn't read books as a kid. I watched tons of television. I created my own television network in my bedroom, which I'm sure most kids do. And sure. I scheduled 7-day-a-week schedule opposite the major networks. I created a board, with the time slots opposite. There were only 3 major networks then. And if I saw a show that I thought deserved to stay on past cancellation, I would put it on my network. I was obsessed with Lily Tomlin because we were both from Detroit. And I felt, she would do these TV specials, maybe once every couple of years. And I'm like, no. Lily Tomlin needs to be on a weekly variety show. So I gave her one. And I got to tell her that, too, years later when we wrote a movie for her. So it's a lot of full circle moments.
I love this idea of your own television network where shows that you love get to sort of come back to life for you. That's awesome. I wish I'd thought of something like that, too.
Or just things like, if you remember the show Love American Style, it was, these little playlists. Vignettes and stories. And they had one called like Love in the Good Old Days or something with Ron Howard. And American Graffiti came on the scene. It was huge. And I thought that should be a weekly series. All of a sudden, I see on ABC Happy Days. I go running downstairs to my mother. I said, have you been telling anybody my ideas? Were you looking? This was all a secret network I had. No one knew I had it, but I was like, someone here in this house,
has spilled the beans.
Spilled the beans in Hollywood, and I'm losing out on a future. And I did get to tell Gary Marshall that story too. So.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love picturing a young you in your room with your board and your ideas.
I was a nerd and obviously not out playing any sports. So I was using my imagination, and what a great way to use it and then to come to Hollywood and actually put it to real use.
That's amazing. So what did getting on that show mean to you and your writing partner at the time?
I mean, everything. At first, it was just a job on a show with really great actors, but you have to go back, I'm sure you have done this, to the mindset of the 80s. And that was not the popular wisdom that a show like that would ever be successful. If I had ever pitched that show, it would have been like, no, thank you. It was 4 women in an ensemble. It was older characters. It wouldn't be done. But it was, as they say, magic in a bottle. And it was just the right cast, the right brilliant script by Susan Harris, and the right time for it, really.
And was it a hit right at it? Like, did you know you were riding on top of a rocket at that point?
Not, because remember, when we got the episode to write, it wasn't on the air yet. So it was just a show. We were just like, it's another show. We had already been on a show that was canceled 12 episodes in, so we didn't know, is this going to happen again? But then when we got on staff at the Monday table reads, they would read the ratings because remember, there weren't computers or we didn't know what the ratings were. So each week they would say, hey guys, good news, we're number 20. And the room would erupt so happy. And then each week it would go up and it would be like, and we just look around going, wow. And then you saw the studio audiences start to come in once the show started airing. They knew the characters. And so what is called the laugh spread, which is how long the laughter would be for jokes, kept building because people knew the characters. They would almost, when somebody, Betty White would say something dumb, they would cut to B. Arthur and there would just be laughter, like before she even opened her mouth, because people were expecting, they knew a great line was going to come out. And so really what we ended up doing mostly is trimming scripts just because the laugh spread got longer.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And it's something that obviously few people have the chance to experience. And for you to have that so early in your career, just amazing.
Yes, I would stand on the stage and I would look to one side and I would see all these great actors that I had grown up watching Maude, watching Mary Tyler Moore. And then I would look up at the stands full of all these, the audience had come in. And I just felt like, how did I get so lucky to be here? And you just felt the energy. And each week the energy got bigger. And then it got to be, like going out in West Hollywood on Saturday night. You could go walk down Santa Monica Boulevard and hear Golden Girls being played in all the gay bars.
That's interesting. I didn't realize it even from the beginning.
Yeah, it's not the very beginning, but once it caught on, it became a thing. And, it was appointment television. And back then, it was probably before VCRs, I think, Golden Girls. So when you had to watch it, if you wanted to see it, you had to watch it Saturday night.
Yeah. And
people did.
That's awesome.
And so what were some of your favorite episodes? Obviously, I'm assuming the ones
I wrote, yes.
Yes. But favorite moments too, and moments where you're like having that, I can't believe B. Arthur is saying this line that I just wrote.
Was there a first time you heard one of the ladies speak a line that you wrote? Is that sort of embedded in your brain that, oh my gosh, they're saying my words?
I think the first table read of our first episode, because we had heard that B. Arthur was very upset at the age of the writers. I mean, she looked over and, we were so young that we probably even looked like I was 15. Back then, I didn't have glasses, and I started wearing glasses to pitch meetings, so I would look older, and now I just have to wear them. But she was not shy about that was the word on the street. And then she started seeing the scripts and she was like, nope, they got it. But I think probably the most that I remember was our first episode. And that is Rose's mother, or it's also called Blanche and the Younger Man. And that week, B. Arthur's mother actually passed. And the producer said, we'll cancel the show. Like, you can't obviously film this episode. It's all about mothers and daughters. And she comes from the theater, like I do. And the slogan of the show must go on. And she said, no, I mean, all these people that work here would be out of work for a week. I can't do that to them. I'm going to do it and go through it. And there's a beautiful scene in the kitchen between Estelle Getty and B. Arthur. And Estelle says to B, you don't treat me like a little girl, you treat me like a woman. And still, when I see it, the hairs on my arm stand up, because you see B. Arthur can't even look in Estelle's eyes. She has to look away. It's so emotional, those words, on so many levels, that I just remember that. And every time I see it, it brings me back to that moment.
Oh my goodness.
That is stunning. That is so stunning. It had to be just an incredible, I mean, hats off to you for having just the guts to show up. Like I think at that age, I would be like, I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
We did keep our mouth shut. We literally got stuck in an elevator one time after a table read. My writing partner and I would just we would get out of there as quick as possible. Because the higher ups would get notes from the network. And we ran to the elevator, and then we hear hold the elevator, and it's B. Arthur. And it's like the three of us in an elevator. And we were just like, just keep the job. So I'm just looking down at her feet because she didn't wear socks. That's the whole thing. She wore sandals all the time. So I'm looking at B. Arthur's big feet. I mean, this is crazy. And we may have said goodbye. I don't remember. But, we were terrified. And, a lot of that job was walking around being scared. We wanted to do a good job, and they kept giving us more scripts to write. So obviously we were doing something right. We got nominated for Writers Guild Award for one of the episodes. Yeah. And, but it was terrifying. It was also very weird. When you're staff writers, you don't get credit every week on the show, even though you're in the writer's room with everybody else, which I don't think is particularly fair. Then you don't get residuals. It's, again, a way for companies to save money. And the networks and the producers never gave us those director's chairs with our name on it. Like, everybody had a chair except the two of us. And so that's, kind of weird to go to work and just, and there was one NBC executive that noticed David Newman, and he would always get up and say, "Here, you guys, you should be sitting down. You're the writers." And we were appreciated, though, by the four actresses. And I've never had that to this day, where almost every interview I've seen of them on television, they always say it's the writers, the writers, the writers, the writers. And you don't see that a lot. And I think, because they had been on so many shows, they knew good writing. And we knew that if they couldn't land a joke, we just need to write a new joke, because, they just knew that art form of sitcoms so well.
That's amazing. What were some of the most important things you learned on that show?
It was writing 101 for us, because I knew it was funny, but I didn't think I was like joke funny. And so we learned about writing from character. We learned on there that you couldn't just take one joke from one character if it didn't work and give it to another character. Like, the actors would know, you have to write specifically for them, that jokes come out of character. It's not just, I'm not a stand-up comic. I don't write like that. So it has to come literally from the character, and that makes it more honest. And we saw that a lot on Roseanne, because Roseanne and Tom Arnold would put on staff a lot of their stand-up comedy friends. We had 21 writers as opposed to 7 on Golden Girls.
Wow.
But it was like Norm Macdonald and Pat Bullard and Laura Keitlinger. They were stand-up, Lois Bromfield, but they had never written before. So we had to teach them what we had learned on Golden Girls. And just storytelling. I think I love that Rue McClanahan came up to us very early on. Anytime like one of those actors would start walking towards you go, "She's coming to talk to us." And she just said, she's an actor's actor. And she just said, "Challenge my character." So let's listen to her literally, and went back to her office and say, "Okay, Blanche, is a very sexual person. So what stories could we come up with where she might go to that sexuality first and then think, oh, I shouldn't?" And that's how we came up with the episode of Adult Education, when she's propositioned by her teacher. And she could have easily just had sex with him and got the good grade. But it's like, no, I can't do that. And we brought that to Roseanne. That's how we came up with the lesbian kiss. At the time, the character Roseanne Connor was very liberal. So we were discussing what could we throw at her that would suddenly make her question that. What if she kissed another woman? And then you see all the people's reactions to it. And how does she feel about it? And, that was a great episode because, it was groundbreaking at the time. And the networks, ABC did not want to put it on the air. And it became a story on the nightly news. And to the credit of Roseanne and Tom Arnold, they said to ABC, if you don't put it on, we'll buy it back and we'll put it on HBO for the night.
So they really had a throwdown over that episode.
Oh, yeah, it was a huge fight. Huge. And then the length of the kiss. It could be, and how you shot it. We couldn't see this. And it's so short. But it changed television in that the world didn't explode. And we actually got more viewers watching the show. And I like to think that, it was another baby step after Soap, another Susan Harris show, but obviously before Ellen and Will and Grace.
Yeah, we had on Matt Baum. You probably know
I'm in
Matt.
the book.
You're in the book, okay? Which I have.
I felt I deserve a full, chapter.
Yeah,
because Jim and I were we were the first gay writing team that came out of the closet, and people find this hard to believe when I do panels about Golden Girls that we were in the closet on the show, because they think of Golden Girls as such a progressive show. But again, remember back in the 80s.
This is in 1984, 85 when you got this show. Yeah.
Our agent said, you cannot say you're gay or you might not lose a job. So
your agent said that to you?
Yeah, it was just common knowledge. That was just told to us because I remember reading about Gary Marshall on staff for his shows. They would, in between writing, they would go out and play basketball outside the office. I'm like, well, we can't get that job. I can't play basketball. Anything with like a ball brings back memories of being hit in the head and then walking around with that imprint, for 3 days. So we couldn't say anything. So it was very strange. It was also during the AIDS epidemic, and we couldn't really talk about, what I was, went to Studio One in West Hollywood over the weekend. Or I remember on Golden Girls, we came in and we were living in Silver Lake, and we had gone to a garage sale, and I'd gotten these old vintage sweaters, and someone on the staff said, oh, the sale was because someone died of AIDS. You have to go home and burn those sweaters. So we didn't really know that much about it, but
yeah.
I went home, I didn't burn them, but I threw them away. So it's very hard to go to work and everyone's talking about their personal life, and we obviously couldn't.
That's because it's such a big part of the television writer staff room thing is.
Any job, you're there and you're like, what did you do? Or who did you see? And to close off such an important part of your life, it was, and again, because we're working with telling our stories in the writer's room, we couldn't tell, dating stories from our perspective. But years later, when we did get to work with Morton Nathan and Barry Finero, they're like, oh, we knew. Why didn't you say something? And then we worked with them. They produced our first pilot for Paramount. And we'd be working in their offices at the Paramount lot. And a really beautiful woman would walk by and they would go, nothing? And we go, no. And then a hot guy would walk by and we'd go to them, nothing? Goes both ways.
Goes both ways. So, can I ask you at what point you guys came out as writers or as people in the industry?
Years later, it was, I don't know if you remember the LA Weekly, which was a free newspaper.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Come to us and said, we're doing a story about gays in Hollywood, and can we interview you? And our agents are like, no. And I was just at that point, it, and we were at Warner Brothers and they shot us on the Western back lot. Yeah. Real tough characters. Yeah. Again, the world didn't explode. It was freeing. It just felt obviously all our friends knew, my family knew, but it was just wonderful to be able to tap into that and just say, yeah, that's who we are. And we come with all of that, being an outsider, looking at the world from that point of view in our writing, obviously.
When was that?
I should look. I want to say maybe late 80s.
Late 80s. Okay.
So
yeah.
Still pretty early in your career.
Yeah.
So that's great. Yeah. That's fantastic.
But, I remember that, I actually went to high school with the Indigo Girls, and I remember when they came out in People magazine, and then I was basically back in Atlanta. They were playing in Alabama, and my mom hadn't seen them since high school. And she was like, oh, we should go see them. I was like, yeah, Mom, we should. So we're driving, and I'm like, we're going to go backstage, and I think Amy's girlfriend is going to be there. And I don't know about Emily's girlfriend. And I'm like, I better say something. And I was like, so Mom, You know they're gay,
And
right?
how you drive? Do you go like,
That's how I drive. When you're about to tell everybody. I'm like, you know they're gay, right? And she's like, oh, I know. It was in People magazine. I'm wondering what, their mom thinks, what Amy's mom thinks, and I was like, well, it's, but it was those little baby steps you were taking your parents through, you were taking everybody through. And then we get there and they're like, again, it was a huge crowd. And she's like, they're rock stars. That was more shocking to her than anything else.
I remember my mom taking me because I was obsessed with Lily Tomlin. She was performing at a Now meeting in downtown Detroit. And I was a little kid. I mean, I was maybe 12, 13. And she was explaining to me, she says, just so you know, when we get there, you're probably going to see a lot of women and a lot of them are lesbians. And she had no judgment. She was just explaining this is what, and that's part of the Now movement, And so as a young kid, I like, okay, sure. Like, and I was like, that's life,
Yeah.
It's part of the fabric.
Part of the fabric. But I love that that show, The Golden Girls, is such a beloved gay, iconic show in some ways, even though none of them are gay. But
Coco was, but
yes.
They got rid of Coco before us.
Before you.
We had nothing to do with the demise of Coco.
I know. That was sort of strange because it's the pilot and then just never again.
It's actually a little surprising to me. It always has been that he was even in the pilot. I mean, how did that happen? And then I can see where the executives would go, yeah, maybe not yet. Or not.
I mean, I think from Susan Harris, she obviously had tapped into the whole gay world with soap. And I think she wanted to push the envelope more. And then, Estelle was only supposed to be, like a semi-regular. And when they saw the chemistry between the four of them, it was like, we don't really need somebody coming with the jokes. Like, we need to be going to Estelle for that. And I'm glad they, changed course. I feel like when we were there, we might have pitched like, hey, what if Coco came back or had an episode? But they really, at that point, didn't.
Yeah, we moved on.
We moved on. Maybe people will forget, not realizing now that everybody analyzes every episode. Again, back then, because it wasn't recorded, it would go away after it was on.
Okay, so I am curious. One more question about Golden Girls, which is like, what Golden Girl are you? And like, has it changed? What Golden Girl were you when you started on Golden Girls? And what Golden Girl are you now?
Well, I always feel I'm a Sophia just because that was the one that I got to know the best. So she will always be in my heart. And whenever I passed by her old apartment, she was living in an apartment on Hollywood Boulevard on the second floor. And right by where that garden, there's an outdoor garden, where people come. A community garden.
Community garden, yeah.
So I always like, hi, Stella, when I go by there. And I remember going there, she had a birthday party there, and I'm just sitting there, with my plastic cup with whatever, wine was in it. And in walks Betty White and Rue McClanahan together. Like, they drove together. Like, that was like, okay, I'm just at a, party in West Hollywood and sitting on a couch with these people. It was pretty wild. I don't know. I think my friends would probably say I'm most like B. Arthur, but I hope I have a little Blanche in me. Probably not Rose. I'm not really that dingy. So.
And so Sophia was your favorite character to write for?
Well, for her, but also there was just something about her that I always envisioned. It was like a star baseball player. And she would just hit the jokes and you see them go over the fence, every one of them, over the fence, over the fence, over the fence. So you just have her walk through at the end of a scene, which we call a button or a blow to a scene. And we like, bring Estelle in, and it was just like, always. I mean, how many actors can just do that, just nail it all the time? So she had a gift, although she was terrified of tape nights. And she was very open about that. And I think she started having dementia, which we didn't know at the time. And she wasn't used to the other three ladies had been on so many sitcoms where the lines changed, between tapings at rehearsals. And Estelle was used to doing theater where you have your script and you do the same thing every night.
Yeah.
So every time Friday night would roll around, she, would panic. And everyone would have to just go, it's going to be okay.
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Because she's so great, right? And you want people to enjoy themselves when they're doing something so great.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people that are in a work situation where they can't enjoy it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And, that's not really been my issue. I so take the moment and appreciate I'm here. And, as an actor, I was taught being present. It's all in the moment. And so every moment that I was on all these shows, I really stopped and, said thank you. As difficult as certain jobs were, how lucky I was to write for such talented people, have them say words that came from here or here.
And so after Golden Girls, were you like, I'm only working with women?
Well, growing up, I just gravitated. I had female friends. I just, I was always listening to my mother, my grandmother, my sister. The only way I can explain it, it's weird, is that I feel if there's any body part that's a woman, it's my heart. I just feel like I have a female heart. I just think and feel there's some connection that I love directing plays when I'm just in a room full of women and rehearsing with women. I wish I could find the word for it, but it just feels like home to me.
Oh my gosh. Well, how did you and your partner get started in the first place? Let's go back before Golden Girls.
Back before that. In my mind, living in Detroit, I would watch like the Dick Van Dyke Show and I would see like what a writer's room was, but I knew I couldn't write, but I had these great ideas. So I envisioned having a writing partner, not even really knowing what that was, but somebody out there that could complement me that was more learned. And I met this guy at NYU who was a journalism major. So he came from words, I came from acting and emotions. And then we got together and for some reason said, let's write a pilot. And we just started writing in between classes and after school jobs. And he had a writer's manual that had agents listed in there. We sent it to a bunch of agents and we found one who only handled newscasters and us. And he liked it and he sent our stuff out to LA. And this guy, Gary Keeper, who would later become our mentor, read it. He had a job at Paramount in development and really liked it. Pilot.
So was it a sitcom that the two of you wrote?
It was a sitcom, actually. We wrote it for Kate Jackson.
Oh my gosh.
And Andrew Stevens, because they were married.
Together. They did, yeah.
So it was called Double Take, and they were a couple on a soap opera.
Love
a
it.
Soap opera, which connects to Ladies of the 80s.
Yes, it does.
Which is set in a daytime soap opera. I just realized that. I've literally come full circle in my life.
You have.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. So that's what we wrote. We had a little presentation and an actual script.
Oh, that's amazing. And I'm really excited about you worked on an episode of Brothers, which we talked about on the episode with Matt Baum, because it was one of the first gay main characters in television. Right?
Yes. So that came about. We got offered to write an episode and we went and pitched a bunch of stuff because they had read our Cheers spec and they ended up not liking any of our episodes. And then someone in the room said, why can't we just take your Cheers spec story and adapt it for this show? We're like, oh, actually we could. And so that's what we ended up doing.
Oh, that's so cool. So I'm so curious because that show it's sort of lost a little bit and it feels so groundbreaking.
It was. It was on Showtime and our mentor had gone to work at Showtime and he suggested us for that show. Yeah, it was a wild experience. It was actually the first time when I heard about drug use in Hollywood. So we were working in a writer's room and some writers left the room because we couldn't figure out a story and they came back really energetic. And I'm like, oh, they're so smart. They just solved the problem. And my writing partner said, didn't you see some white on their nose? And I'm like, what? I was like, maybe I was a little Rose back then. I was so innocent. I didn't know that was, going on. But again, that was back in the 80s,
Yes.
and that was just a part of it, I guess. That was the only time really I ever saw that on a TV show. I didn't see it, but I heard that was
something may have happened or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you guys wrote an episode of Fame, also a favorite show of mine.
We did. Again, we went in to pitch for that, and that was a full circle moment for me because in college I had auditioned for the movie. There was a mass cattle call, and all my acting student friends, we all went to it. I was the only one, I think, because I looked like such a baby, that I got called back, and suddenly I was in a room with Alan Parker, not even knowing that he was a director. Like all the time, oh yeah, there was some British man, and they're going, "That's a director." And I read for the gay boy in it. Didn't get it, and then because God has a sense of humor, I had sublet an apartment that summer across the street from where they were filming all summer long. So they're dancing in the streets doing Fame, and I'm going, thanks a lot.
That could have been me.
Could have been me, but I got them back when we went in and pitched. And we pitched an episode in, I don't know if you remember, but Janet Jackson.
I was going to say it's a Cleo episode, right? Like
it was a Cleo episode, and Debbie Allen directed it. And she used a song from Janet's first album, Dream Street. And it was Janet Jackson's first music video. You're welcome. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Did you get to be there? Did you get to meet Janet Jackson? I did not
get to meet Janet Jackson. I have met Debbie Allen a number of times, and she's such a sweetheart and so friggin' talented. I did not get to meet Janet. Do I have any Jackson connection? I am the gay Kevin Bacon, so there's some connection.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good because now you're never leaving this show. You're going to get us Debbie Allen. We're going to have you back on.
Connections there, everybody. But I remember going to the Revolver Bar in West Hollywood, and all of a sudden I hear Dream Street, and I'm like, they're playing from Fame. That they cut it into a real music video and got it out to bars and things. Isn't that wild?
That is totally wild. That's a great Fame Janet Jackson story.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
See her. The last time was at, I'm just going to name drop.
Yeah, please. We love it.
It was at a birthday party for Raven Simone, who we had worked with on a project. And, I saw Debbie Allen. I'm marching right over there and talking to her. And I just reminded her of what a great job she did on that episode and how cool it was to write for Jackson. And whatever happened to Janet Jackson? Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, she did some things.
A little music career there.
Music career. I think she's and again, I don't think she gets enough flowers because she's freaking amazing and has had an amazing career and, got overshadowed and also I don't know.
Well, and the way she was just excoriated for the Super Bowl performance while, I don't know, somebody else just kind of walked away scot-free is just wrong on so many levels, but we're not here to talk about music.
That'll be a different podcast.
No, but I mean, she goes back. She was an actress on a sitcom and
she was on Good Times. Yeah. When she was 12, 13, something like that. So, yeah.
So incredibly talented. Okay.
So I have created a theatrical musical piece using over 40 TV theme songs, everything from I Love Lucy to Big Bang Theory, Good Times, Maude, and we've done a couple of readings of it. We did a big one here at Gary Marshall's theater where I got to meet him with Megan Hilty, who did an awesome rendition. She turned Charles in Charge into a torch song. I had the amazing and Emmy winner Sheryl Lee Ralph. She sang Wonder Woman was one of her songs, and she was and she's become a good friend, and I'm so excited for everything that's happened to her.
Stan, I'm just coming over to your house and I'm just going to follow you around. I'll carry your bags.
TV theme songs. I love TV's theme songs.
What's your favorite?
Oh my gosh, so many though.
Well, we did an episode. We did a crossover episode with.
I know.
Okay.
I saw that.
I will tell you that when I came to the Rose Bowl, I think it was 1980s when my college team was playing. We went to the parade beforehand. We're sitting in the stands waiting for things to clear up before the bus comes, takes us wherever they're taking us next. Somebody starts singing Gilligan's Island theme song. Everybody joins in. And then we move on to Green Acres, Brady Bunch, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, and because everybody knew the words. Everybody knew theme songs back then for TV shows.
Fun about the musical. So thinking of Shirley Ralph singing Wonder Woman or Maude was great. I mean, the Jeffersons, Moving On Up.
Oh, that's such a great song. Yeah.
I just start dancing, when I hear that song. That's one of the best, I think.
You've done a lot of theater. You've done a lot of writing, directing.
I got back into it after I had been the host showrunner on a Bravo TV reality show produced by Sean Hayes called Situation Comedy. And then through him, I met someone running a theater and they asked me to direct. And then I was directing some shows. And then a Broadway producer said, "You're a writer, start writing plays." And I didn't think anything I would have to say in theater. And then all of a sudden we came up with a show called Meet and Greet about 4 actresses of a certain age who end up in the lobby of a casting office at a major network, and they're auditioning for a really bad sitcom written by 2 men. And so
something you know nothing about.
Nothing about. And we ran that for a long time, but it started great people like Teresa Ganzel and Vicki Lewis from News Radio.
Wow.
We did a reading in New York with Sherry Shepard and Rachel Dratch. So that's another play. We ran for 5 months in LA, but I still would love to do that somewhere. Yeah. And then now I've been directing more serious things, like a Latinx version of The Diary of Anne Frank, which has been going on since 2018. And then to get really heavy, a play about suicide. A very close friend of mine died by suicide about 12 years ago. And I created a play using real suicide notes like Virginia Woolf and Kurt Cobain and war veterans and LGBTQ. And I've been playing me, the narrator, all across America. We did a 5-city tour last year with cast members from Gilmore Girls and Virginia Madsen. So it's being done all over now and hopefully provoking conversation and saving lives. I love those kind of plays where you're laughing 1 minute and then suddenly, tears are coming down your face.
I love the concept for the Diary of Anne Frank, and it sounds like it's been really very impactful.
Because I saw a CNN story about a Jewish woman in 2018 who was hiding a Latina mom and her 2 daughters when her husband was deported by ICE, and that made me think we're literally living in the times of Anne Frank, and that's what made me think what would happen if I cast everyone in the attic with Latinx actors. So my vision of the show is it's a woman handing out scripts to 2 Latinx families. In the beginning of the play, they're just reading it. And then suddenly the scripts magically disappear and I add sound and lights. And then suddenly Act 2, they're in full period costumes. So they are putting their feet in the shoes of these characters to see the differences, the similarities of what happened then. As we say, as a Jew, never again. And yet here we are in the world, and never again is right now, really.
Yeah.
Not so real serious. Let's talk about some 80s ladies. Yeah.
That sense of how did we get here where it feels like we've now gone backwards? And as much as we actually love 80s television, 80s ladies, and the joy of that, there's also real underlying true questions to be asked of why are we having the same conversations we had 40 years ago? Why are we still not able to solve these huge things that are solvable? And why is Anne Frank so resonant for so many communities right now? That's not just a lesson. Yeah.
No, I think it's because we're so afraid of talking about, sexuality, racism. Let's eliminate all the history from schools in Florida. Like, if we don't talk about it, and sometimes there are going to be some messy conversations. And as much as it's so painful to watch some of the things happening in the world today or tearing down missing children, I don't understand that. We got to start having these really tough conversations to move forward and find where's the point where we intersect. Let's just start, even if it's a sliver, and then we can move from there. But if we don't talk about it, and my Suicide Note play has been canceled, college in Florida, we were having a special student show in Virginia 2 months ago. One woman who didn't even have a kid in the school got it canceled for the students because she didn't like that there was LGBTQ content. All those kids that we could have saved that didn't get to see it because of one person.
I always think about how post-World War II Germany and also post-apartheid South Africa have shown that you can really make some headway in healing these kinds of wounds by talking about it. Germany made it a point to teach in their schools what had just happened in their country and why. And in South Africa, they have had to do something similar as they left the apartheid system and open things up more. Did it solve every problem? No, but they are further down the road than our country is with the wounds that we have lived through. And we'll never get past them, whether it's something big like racism or sexism or anything else. But even the small things, like talking about suicide, if you don't talk about it, if you don't make it clear that it can be talked about, you're simply making it, for lack of a better word, easier for somebody to go further down that road than maybe to not save somebody who could have been pulled back from the brink.
They don't feel heard. They feel alone. That makes them write notes. I don't want any more notes. I want people to talk about it. But for Anne Frank, I learned when we were auditioning Girls for Anne Frank, it's not required reading in California schools anymore. So that's why we've been bringing it back 3-4 times in this past year at the Colony Theater in Burbank, and we've been specifically bringing in school groups. So for a lot of these kids, this is the first play they've seen and the first time they've heard about who Anne Frank is. So we always have a talk back after with a Holocaust survivor who's 92 years old. But also when Roseanne got fired and that whole thing with Valerie Jarrett, I went on some talk shows and I talked about, I wish she had used it as a teachable moment. And she didn't. She blamed it on Ambien. What if she really would have said, all right, let's get in there. I didn't know this, or I did know this, or I thought this was funny. We had something awful happen at one of the last performances of Anne Frank. Some boys towards the beginning of the play did the Heil Hitler sign and said Heil Hitler out loud.
Oh my God.
In the audience, some boys in the audience.
And that really threw my cast.
Yes.
After we used the talkback to turn it into a teachable moment. Even if you think it's funny, why is it not funny? Let's talk about it.
The Roseanne trajectory is heartbreaking to me as someone who loves that show, who knows that she was such a groundbreaking force in television, in comedy, and was really a part of changing conversations. But like the craziness of television, like, do we not talk about things now? Can we please still love Roseanne and all its goodness?
I think so. I mean, in her case, I think we can.
Yes.
There are other situations where it's a little bit harder, but
Yes.
In that case,
I wonder who you could be talking about.
Yes.
in Roseanne's case, I think we can. I think we can look back at what the show is, the original show is, what it was, what it did. I mean, listen, even then she wasn't perfect. All the stories about what went on behind the scenes.
Do you talk about that in your book?
Oh, of course I do.
Okay.
We were there the year when they handed out numbered T-shirts because they didn't want to learn the names of the writers in case you got fired. So you would just be like, hey, number 13. The first day on set, we had all the writers get in the line, and they thought it was funny, Tom and Roseanne did, that all the writers had to wear numbered T-shirts. We revolted and said, we're not wearing them. But my birthday is October 13th, so I got in line to get that 13 t-shirt. I still have it today. Of course, I wore it at the reunion picket line. I see Tom Arnold. What's the first thing he does? He knocks into me, spilling coffee all over it.
No way. Really?
This is the second time I've worn this shirt out in public. Yes. But everyone was laughing, going, if it had to happen by anybody, it had to be Tom Arnold. Yes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, but then we'll come right back and we'll talk about, oh my gosh, Something Wilder, Brady sequel, Gilmore Girls, and A Divas Christmas finally.
Yes, finally.
All right, so we're back. We got to get to Divas Christmas, but first I have to ask what it was like working with Gene Wilder on Something Wilder.
He smelled like baby powder. Up close. Isn't that odd? maybe
that was not what I thought you were going to say.
No, I know. Again, he wasn't a lady, but that'll be in my next book about the men in my life. But, he was a genius. But it was interesting to see him struggle with the sitcom format because he was such a physical comic. Mm-hmm. And I remember he came into the writer's room and he said, can't you write me a scene where I don't have to talk? And we're like, Gene, it's a sitcom. There's words. And then I'm like, wait, we can come up with something. So we came up with this idea of he was afraid to go to the dentist. And so he got really nervous. And the hygienist, it was her first day on the job. And she ended up doing the Novocaine, but she slipped and got into his leg. And then she kept doing so then he lost his, ability to walk, and then an arm, and then I don't know how it was so funny, and he didn't speak a word in it. He just mumbled and got to do that. So that's what I love about television is, you're kind of you have a sandbox to play in, but there's definitely corners of it. And then you could be as creative as you want in the middle of it.
Oh my God.
How fun.
All right. And you guys wrote A Very Brady Sequel.
We wrote both Brady Bunch movies.
You wrote both of them.
The awful thing about one of the things about the Writers Guild is that they only allow the first, I think, 3 or 4 writers to get credit. So we came on, we were the 5th writers, right before production started, before casting. We were only supposed to do like a week or 2 polish, and they loved what we did. So they kept hiring us for 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks and 2 more weeks. So we were there a while. We were there all during casting. Paramount suggested we get credit. It's not how it works. If you don't change, because it was locked as far as locations, you have to change the structure of a script to get credit. So the structure was already there. So they would say, literally, you have Jan and Mrs. Cummings in her office. Write anything you want. So we couldn't change where it was, but every word in there we could change. Well, coming up with the idea to cast RuPaul changed everything. So unfortunately, we did not get credit. My mother did know that we wrote it, and everyone in town did, but I lost a lot of money because our names were not on it. I think it's a very antiquated idea. Back in the old days in early movies, you'll see at the end of a movie like additional dialogue. I think at least needs to be somewhere there. Like there were, pet groomers and bartenders. Everybody got credit, not us.
Wow.
And I found, here's a transition to ladies of the 80s. There's been a lot of publicity because obviously those women are icons of the 80s. There was just speaking as People magazine, a big article about the movie, quoting some of the funny lines. Nowhere did it say who wrote the script.
In the whole article?
Yep. I find that shocking because they're written by writers. So you would think writers would support other writers. We just had a huge long writer's strike. Like, why can you not find anything to say written by, that's like 5 words you'd have to put in there. So with ladies of the 80s, we were in Dallas, almost about to open our Silver Foxes play. And our old assistant, Jason Wood, who's head of casting at Lifetime, called and said, can I throw your hat in the ring? There's this TV movie I think you might be right for. And he told us, the 5 actresses at that time that were attached. This is the middle of March. It had to be written by May 1st, pens down because of the strike. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
one set, one location, 15-day shoot, go. I said, give us less than 24 hours. We came back to them. A bunch of writers were pitching stuff. We came back, we pitched a bunch of things, and they said, we like all of these. Which one do you want to do? And like, writers aren't used to hearing that. We're like, well, what do you want to do? But then we said, we think this is the best because of the speed we had to do it in, and because we had heard and found out that most of the actresses had gotten their start as daytime soap opera stars. So that's what it's about, and all those daytime shows, like I grew up on One Life to Live and All My Children, they're all being canceled. What if they were all on the show at some point and the show is being canceled and they asked for one more live Christmas Day episode because they're known for their Christmas family episodes. And so they meet up at a house in the hills of Beverly Hills, and you get 5 divas in one house, and all hell breaks loose.
There's also a little bit of a romance between the producer and the director.
Yeah, so, as in all Christmas movies, they like to have a young love story. So we came up with that. The guy was the writer-producer on the show. He actually started as Donna Mills' baby, like a baby actor.
Oh, wow.
Okay, I love that.
So, and they became like his surrogate real mother when he had his mother pass, which is based on my mother passing. And he found out that he wanted to write more than he wanted to act. And so he became a writer, producer. And he brings on a female director that he was in college with. And we'll see if sparks fly. Right, yeah.
And the ladies have to come together in order to keep the romance going.
Well, they can be conniving like they were on the show, and they have to, get their fingers into everything. And, when you get, especially those 5 together that come with, so much history, and some had history, like Nicolette and Donna being on the same show. And
yeah, they were both on Knots Landing.
Yeah. And, having Christopher Atkins come on as Linda Gray's husband. So there's fun stuff like that. And Patrika Darbo, who's won Emmys for soap operas.
Right. She was on Days of Our Lives.
So she has a little guest spot on it.
Oh, that's great.
We wanted to work together. And Alec Mappa is in the show as well. And the cast was originally going to be Joan Collins and Jacqueline Smith. And unfortunately, because of the strike, we had a short window to film it before the actors went on strike. And unfortunately, Joan and Jacqueline, even though they had committed to the script, couldn't shoot it at that time. So May 1st, pens were down, computers were turned off. And the good part of that was they couldn't change much of the script. And the bad part was that we couldn't go to set.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I know.
So that was awful. And I kept saying, can I wear a mustache and a hat, or dress like as a palm tree and just sneak on? But, we didn't want to get the production shut down. So we kind of stayed away, which was too bad. So before our pens were down, we did get to, talk with a bunch of the ladies and get their thoughts and, do some tweaking of the script, for Linda and Morgan. And so that's when Loni Anderson and Nicolette came on. Right. And Morgan Fairchild actually took Joan Collins' role.
Okay, so there was a little bit of shifting.
Oh.
Yeah, so you're getting the dirt now.
I know, I love it.
I don't know if I'm supposed to tell these stories.
Well, it's fine. The movie will be out.
It's not dirt. It's just very interesting behind the scenes stuff. So I think we're good.
Everyone wanted to take the Joan Collins role. So we had actually tried to develop a sitcom for Joan Collins years ago. We just thought she was so funny, and she wasn't, given props for being funny.
Yeah.
And we pitched her something she wanted to do. It never ended up happening, but Joan Collins is in my book. Somehow they all connect back to it. But I didn't know any of these, just enjoyed them from afar. We have the connection. Morgan Fairchild was on Roseanne as my friend Sandra Bernhardt's love interest, but we never got to write for any of them now. But hopefully if people watch, there will be maybe a sequel or
Divas Christmas too.
Oh yeah, we already have some ideas. They go on vacation, or there could be even a series in it.
Getting back to the beginning, so the idea was an idea that Lifetime came up with in terms of, so it was something you guys came up with.
They came up with 5 actresses wanted to do a Christmas movie, one location. We came up with different ideas to use. We picked different locations.
Mm-hmm.
Best seemed to be like a house, a big house, and then you could redecorate some of the rooms to be like an office or, but we had one that was at a hotel. I can go back. I should go back and look at what the other ones.
No, you got to save them for,
Yeah, I can't just throw them out here.
Exactly.
Tell us.
Susan might steal one. No, now they're not. All this playwriting, you could take one and do whatever you want with it.
Was it always going to be women who were 80s TV ladies, or so that was also
that was all ours.
Awesome.
It literally was just 5 actresses, anything you want.
Oh, wow.
So we brought it to this because obviously it was in our wheelhouse. They come with that knowledge of people knowing that about them. So we thought, why not play into that? And it just seemed, it was so rich with, their beginnings, and they could talk about their young days as actors together and being on those shows and how crazy those soap operas were. We started delving into some of the crazy things that happened, with, there were ghosts and evil sisters and, end up on some island and, you could do anything. And, that one actor replaced another actor and the fighting and all of that.
Oh, fantastic.
That is so great. As far as we know, did the divas all get along?
Oh, I can't tell you that.
Oh, he wasn't there.
I mean, they just had 15 days. How much trouble could they get into?
Oh, yeah. It just takes several hours. And we actually used the title. We had written a New Line movie for, it's called The Great Lakes. That was their daytime soap opera. And their last name was Lakes. But we stole that from a movie script that we wrote for New Line, starring Goldie Hawn and Kate Hudson, a mom and her 3 daughters. And we developed it with Kate and Goldie. And it never happened. Totally different idea. But it was about a mom and 3 sisters. And it was Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, Kate Hudson.
Come on.
How great would that have been?
Oh, my gosh.
Who wouldn't want to make that movie? But no, they didn't. And so we just couldn't let that title go by. So we used it as, and I got to use my niece's name, Nell. And so I named the young female director Nell, even though they kept saying, it's such an old fashioned name. I'm going, it's my niece, she's a young girl. So it's fun to use family members' names in shows.
Well, in these days, there are a lot of people who are naming their kids long ago names, for lack of.
That's what I said.
Yes, exactly.
I'm like, really? But when you get notes like that all the time, we've had some crazy notes in our career, and it was like, usually you do change it if they have a problem. But I'm like, guys, it's the name of a character. Come on, that, there's micromanaging, and then there's insanity. And Jim, my writing partner, used his nephew Alex, so we had our niece and nephew. And my cousin, when I was growing up, used to write for Mad Magazine, and he put my name in, those letters from camp. So maybe I just was stealing that idea from him. That and that gave me such thrill. I would show it to my friends. That's Stanley's me in there.
You have worked with, if not, you didn't get to be on set with these ladies, but you have worked with an incredible lineup of comedians and actresses. And, who would you work with again at the drop of a hat? Like, I don't even care what it is. If she calls, you're on.
There's so many that come to mind.
All of them.
The 2 that come to my mind the most, Melissa Peterman and Wendy Malick. I just am in love with both of them, and maybe I need to put them in something together. They're just so hysterical and so loving and so giving. And, especially Melissa will come up with jokes. Like I said, I want to put you on staff as a writer. She's just one of the funniest people. And but I've worked with just great people. I'm, like I said, Teresa Genzel and Vicki Lewis and Andrew Bowen from Desperate Housewives, and yeah, there's been a lot. I mean, I wish I could work with Estelle Getty, but
Yeah.
I have talked about writing a one-woman show about her, so that's still in the back of my mind.
You should totally do that.
Do that. Get Rhea Perlman to play her.
Oh. But also, as a producer, there's a lot of ladies, actor ladies all over the country who need a good role to play. And I was going to say, who would you love to work with that you haven't been able to? That's like on your list of like the ladies.
Where do we start? Meryl Streep, Allison Janney. Oh my God, the list can go on and on. There's so many people, but those have to be the
big ones.
Top two that I need to have them in my life. Yeah.
Okay. All right. The book.
It's happened. Yes.
Oh yeah, we'll work on it. We'll have some lunch. We'll make it all happen. We'll do a bunch of plays together.
I did make Allison Janney laugh one time at a party. And the minute that happened, I'm like, I can go home now. I've lived, I'm done. I don't have to go to any more parties ever again in Hollywood. That's like, when you make someone like one of your idols laugh,
yes.
It's the best feeling in the world.
That is amazing. All right. The book. Tell us about the book, how it came to be. The Girls.
It's The Girls, From Golden to Gilmore, and it's stories about all the wonderful women I've worked with and Roseanne. You take that as you will. And it's really a Valentine about all these amazing women that I've been so lucky to work for, develop ideas for, that maybe not have gone all the way to script. And my journey, and using my old journals where I kept during all the shows. And then the last chapter is really about my mom and her passing and the very difficult 13 days in hospice, and realizing that she is my one true golden girl. And so it's a real tribute to her, my biggest cheerleader. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her support all these years as a young kid. Just, if this is your passion, we're going to make and do whatever we can to make it happen. And she did.
How did you come up with the idea for the book? Where did it start?
Where did it start? I guess because I always get asked, like, how did you, as such a young guy, write for older women? That was the number one question. And then it just became a pattern of all these great women that we ended up writing for. And then I thought of the title, all the G's. I love a good alliteration. Then I thought, all right, I'm going to bring it up at the Gilmore Girls Fan Festival. And if I say it out loud, then I'll be forced to write the book, not realizing how hard it is to write a book and how painful it was to go back in my life and relive those and re-look at how I viewed the world back then as opposed to now, where I am now in my life, the lessons I've learned, all of that. And so they kept me accountable, my Gilmore Girls fans and family there. And then I was lucky to get Indigo River Publishing to get behind it. And here we are. It's coming out February 13th, just in time for Valentine's Day. And I can't wait for everybody to read it. It was a lot of hard work, but I hope people have some laughs. It's like sitting with me, for coffee or a glass of rosé or a martini. I will not turn down a martini. And, just gabbing and hearing stories like we did today.
Were there any stories as you were compiling the things you were going to write about in the book that, looking back on it, you found that your feelings about it have changed over time or for whatever reason?
Yes, my view on Betty White.
How so?
Well, I can't tell you. You got to read the book. I think I'm going to give you everything tonight. I've given you like my blood today. You still want more.
I can't wait. I'm so glad it's only a couple months away before the book comes out.
Wow.
It's very easy, quick reading, little chapters. And they're, divided like Golden Girls, Gilmore Girls, the Brady Bunch. Mm-hmm. The Next Lucy, which is about all the women we met with to develop shows because they all wanted to be the next Lucy. So you can just.
Oh my God, I can't wait! And you clearly, good writer knows how to end on a cliffhanger. Keep them
To
wanting
be
more.
continued. Yes.
Indeed.
To be continued. Because we also have to talk about Lily Tomlin. I mean, come on.
That's a whole other one.
I know.
I can't even get to that now. But yeah, she's just that I even consider her a friend, and she returns my emails, and we've had so many meals together now. Like that, as a little kid, idolizing her to that's been quite a journey, and such a special woman, and will always be.
I got to see her speak at the strike. They came. She and Jane Fonda came down to one of the strikes outside of Netflix, and I was thrilled to be there and be like right there. They just walked right up. I'm like, don't they have security? Somebody should get these ladies some security.
I've had meetings with Jane Fonda, and I couldn't pitch. I'm just looking at those beautiful eyes of hers. I'm just like, blah, 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 yeah. And then I was at her house talking when that's again in the book.
Okay. Well, I guess we're going to have to get the book. We're going to get the book. Fine, Stan.
$17.
So, but you're going to sign it for us, right? We get the book.
We'll do an in-person signature.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you so very much. This has been fantastic. We could clearly just keep talking for days. And I'm just so delighted that you planned a season when you were 7 and for your network, and that now you get to create television and theater. Always very important in this day.
Well, thank you. And thank you for keeping the 80s ladies alive and going and laughing with them and learning from them.
We are happy to, and I'm really glad that you're also a fan. So thank you.
Thank you for doing this and having me and talking about the movie and everything.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thank you, Stan. Can't wait to actually meet you in person one day so you can sign our books.
We'll do that soon.
Oh, great.
All right.
Have a great Sunday.
Here's today's audiography. Ladies of the 80s, A Divas Christmas premieres on Lifetime Saturday, December 2nd, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central Time, and the link is in our description.
You can pre-order Stan's book, The Girls, From Golden to Gilmore, at bookshop.org, and the link is in our description.
And you've got to order it so you can find out what he's teasing about Betty White.
I have to know.
So do I.
I cannot wait till February. I may have to go sit outside his house. Make him tell me.
Thank you for listening. Please be sure to rate, like, and review us. It really helps us out a lot.
And you know, the advertising you hear on this show covers very little of the cost of producing it. The best way to support our show and not hear ads is on patreon.com/80stvladies.
Be sure to tune in for our next regularly scheduled episode. We're going to jump back into designing women with our fabulous 90s TV babies. I can't wait to hear what Sergio, Sarita, and Megan think of Julia, Charlene, Mary Jo, Suzanne, and Anthony.
And who knows what other surprises and totally rad guests we might have in store for you soon on our podcast. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course at 80stvladies.com and wherever you find your podcasts.
We hope 80s TV Ladies brings you joy and laughter and lots of fabulous new and old shows to watch, all of which will lead us forward toward being amazing ladies of the 21st century.
Happy holidays.